the escaped water buffalo, and the ill-fated attempt to build a flying machine from bamboo and banana leaves. But there was something else in Apial's eyes this time. A yearning, a desire to prove himself that went beyond mere bravado. And what if the legends are just that? Stories to keep children from wandering too far away, LimChheng countered, though he felt his resolve beginning to fray. Then it is still a challenge, Apial boomed. A test of our will against the wild. I dare you, LimChheng. Are you a man who calculates every step, or will you take a leap of faith with your best friend? The words hung in the hot air. A leap of faith. It was a currency Apial dealt in, while LimChheng preferred the solid ground of certainty. But as he looked at his friend's earnest, hopeful face, he knew he was lost. 7 days, LimChheng conceded, a reluctant smile finally gracing his lips. But we do this my way. We prepare properly. We do not go in with nothing but your bravado and a half-eaten sausage. Apial's answering grin was triumphant. Agreed. Your brain, my spirit. We will be unstoppable. The rest of the day was a blur of methodical preparation.
Day 2 and 3. The Green Deluge and the First Cracks. The first 2 days were a descent into a world of overwhelming green. The canopy above was so dense that the fierce sun became a scattered, dappled light on the forest floor. The air grew heavy, thick with the scent of damp earth, decaying leaves, and the sweet perfume of unseen blossoms. They followed a stream, its gurgling a constant companion. As LimChheng reasoned, it would eventually lead them to a larger body of water, perhaps their fabled waterfall. Peal, who had entered with a boisterous song on his lips, was gradually silenced by the sheer, imposing scale of the wilderness. Every snap of a twig, every rustle in the undergrowth sent his eyes darting into the shadows. The jungle was not empty. It was teeming with life, most of it hidden. And this realization was a humbling one. By the third day, their initial optimism had been dampened, quite literally. A persistent cold drizzle began to fall, seeping through the canopy and soaking their clothes to the bone. The cheerful gurgle of the stream became a sullen murmur. The dried fish, a source of great pride for Peal, was now gone, and their attempts to catch the small, silvery fish that darted in the stream had resulted in nothing but frustration and leech bites. That evening, huddled under the leaky shelter of a broad-leafed plant, the first real crack appeared in Peal's confidence. He shivered, from cold as much as from a growing dread. "Perhaps the elders tell the stories for a reason," he mumbled, his voice barely a whisper. "Perhaps the forest does not want us here, LimChheng." LimChheng, equally miserable, was busy trying to coax a flame from a piece of damp wood. His knuckles were raw, his stomach a hollow ache, but his resolve remained a steady, quiet flame. He looked at his friend, seeing not the boastful daredevil, but a young man stripped of his bravado, facing a reality far harsher than he had imagined. "We made a promise, Peal," he said softly, his voice a comforting presence in the growing darkness. "To the forest and to each other. We have 4 more days. The forest will test us, that is its nature, but it will also provide. Now stop shivering and help me find some drier tinder. Tonight we will have a fire, and with the fire, we will have hope." Moved by his friend's unyielding spirit, Peal nodded and began to scour the area. And as if in response to their combined will, they found a small overhang beneath the roots of a giant banyan tree where the ground was almost dry. There, after much effort, a tiny spark from LimChheng's flint caught, and a fragile flame flickered to life, pushing back the oppressive dark and the cold despair that had threatened to consume them.
Day 4 and 5, Lessons and Lifelines.
The fire marked a turning point. With warmth in their bodies and light to hold the shadows at bay, their spirits began to mend. The fourth day dawned with a renewed purpose. Hunger was now a sharp, constant companion, and it drove them to observe, to learn. LimChheng, recalling the lessons of his grandfather, a man who had lived in harmony with this very forest, began to see not just a wall of green, but a larder of possibilities. He pointed out the edible heart of a palm, its taste crisp and refreshing. He showed Peal how to identify a vine whose fibrous roots, when crushed, could be used to stun fish in small pools. Their first successful catch, a handful of small bony fish, was a feast for kings. They cooked them over the fire, the smell of victory more satisfying than any spice. The forest began to reveal its secrets, and they, in turn, learned its language. They learned to distinguish the warning call of a monkey from its playful chatter, to recognize the tracks of wild boar, and to know by the scent of the air when the rain would return. But the forest had one more near-fatal lesson to teach. On the fifth day, their path was blocked by a river wider and faster than the stream they had been following. It surged over a bed of slick, moss-covered boulders, its current a powerful, churning force. "We must cross here," LimChheng said, pointing to a spot where a fallen log provided a precarious bridge. He went first, inching his way across with painstaking care. Peal, emboldened by their recent successes, followed with a little too much haste. His foot slipped. With a cry of alarm, he was plunged into the raging water. The current seized him immediately, pulling him under. For a terrifying moment, all LimChheng could see was a flash of his friend's shirt before he vanished beneath the brown, swirling water. Panic, cold and sharp, lanced through LimChheng's heart. But his training, his methodical nature took over. He ran along the riverbank, his eyes scanning the torrent. Peal's head broke the surface, his face a mask of pure terror. Without a second thought for his own safety, LimChheng threw himself into the river. The shock of the cold water stole his breath, but he fought it, his powerful strokes taking him toward his struggling friend. He grabbed a handful of Peal's shirt, the fabric tearing in his grip. He grabbed again, this time finding a firm hold on his arm, and with a surge of adrenaline-fueled strength, began the desperate fight to drag them both toward the relative safety of the far bank. They collapsed on the muddy shore, gasping, coughing, and trembling. For a long while, the only sound was the roar of the river that had nearly claimed them. Finally, Peal, his voice raspy, managed to speak. You saved my life." LimChheng, still heaving for breath, could only nod. He clapped his friend on the back, a gesture that spoke volumes. In that shared moment of terror and survival, their bond of friendship was forged into something unbreakable, something as strong and enduring as the ancient stones of the riverbed.
Speaking little, their shared experience a silent, profound conversation. On the morning of the sixth day, as they prepared to move on, a new sound reached them. It was a low, distant rumble, a vibration felt as much as heard, distinct from the rush of the river or the sigh of the wind. It was a deep, resonant hum that seemed to emanate from the very heart of the jungle. Their eyes met, a shared look of awe and dawning realization. "The waterfall," LimChheng breathed, his voice filled with a reverence that had replaced his earlier skepticism. A new energy surged through them. Their weariness fell away, replaced by an all-consuming sense of purpose. They were no longer just surviving, they were on the cusp of discovery. They followed the sound, a primal drumbeat guiding them deeper into a part of the forest that felt older, more sacred. The trees grew taller, their trunks thick with vines and orchids. The air was cool and misty. They hacked their way through a final, dense curtain of hanging lianas, their hearts pounding in a rhythm that matched the growing roar. And then they stopped, speechless. They had found it. They stood on the edge of a vast, natural amphitheater carved from rock and time. Before them, a colossal waterfall, a liquid curtain of silver and white plunged from a towering fern-covered cliff to a tranquil emerald-green pool below. The sheer power of it was breathtaking, the sound a majestic roar that filled the air and silenced all thought. Sunlight, piercing the canopy high above, struck the mist rising from the pool, creating a vibrant, shimmering rainbow that seemed to be a bridge to another world. It was more magnificent than any story had described. It was a place of raw, untamed power and profound, serene beauty. They had done it. 7 days. They had faced hunger, fear, and death. They had been tested and had not been found wanting. They slowly approached the pool, the cool mist kissing their faces. They were no longer the same 2 young men who had entered the forest on a dare. The boastful boy and the cautious planner had been stripped away, revealing an unshakable friendship and a newfound strength. They had not found a waterfall that granted luck, they realized. They had found something far greater. They had found resilience. They had found courage. And they had found the unwavering